isn't she a great environmentalist? Why are we using and reusing so much plastic?
Good point.
Then she gives us the ineffable tip that when you tie a knot, always be sure you put a...
The second installment of Meghan Markle's With Love series with Chrissy Teigen has quickly turned into a case study in how a high-profile project can crash and burn in real time. Viewers tuning in for warmth, charm, and culinary magic were instead met with stilted exchanges, unappetizing dishes, and a kitchen chemistry that felt forced from start to finish. Maureen Callahan's scathing on-air takedown left no room for spin or damage control. This was Meghan, stripped of the gloss at her absolute weakest.
I love to send all my guests home with stuff. You always go home with stuff. He says, listen, I live in New York City. I don't have counter space in my kitchen.
Right.
She doesn't know that. She's
like a normal
never
person.
Pretzels.
Peanut butter pretzels.
And decanting them into another.
Fumbling her way through a segment that only highlighted how little genuine connection she has to the art of cooking or to the audience she claims to inspire. Meghan's misstep was glaring. The blow to her public image was immediate, with critics saying the awkward spectacle only confirmed long-standing doubts about her authenticity and professionalism. From the very first moment, something felt off. Meghan stood beside Chrissy Teigen in a pristinely lit, lavishly styled kitchen, the kind of set where the cameras were as much a character as the hosts. Yet, despite the perfect backdrop, the two women couldn't find anything close to a natural rhythm.
And then Daniel does show up.
Poor Daniel.
Poor Daniel. And she doesn't know if he likes to, lifelong friend of decades, the before, during, and after, as she says, right?
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't know if he likes tomatoes.
Right.
Doesn't know that he's left-handed. He's her makeup artist.
The scripted introductions felt hurried, the laughter oddly timed, and any hint of organic conversation was conspicuously absent. Chrissy, seasoned in the chaos of live television and beloved for her quick, unfiltered humor, appeared to be working overtime to fill the dead air. Meghan, meanwhile, stood with a posture so stiff and a smile so fixed it seemed she was more focused on maintaining her on-camera image than actually engaging with the audience. The result was a setting that felt more like a staged photo shoot than a lively kitchen, clinical, detached, and awkward. It was as if two strangers had been told to play inseparable friends despite having met only a few times before. And that awkward on-camera chemistry wasn't just noticeable, it became the defining feature of the episode.
By the way, not for nothing, I have seen people online, there are her defenders, whether they are paid bots, I don't know, but people saying, why can't you just leave her alone? She's just trying to make an entertaining cooking show, whatever. To which I say,
it became the dead weight dragging the entire segment under cooking shows. Live and breathe on connection. The playful back and forth between hosts, the spontaneous laughter, the effortless sharing of stories over chopping boards and bubbling pans. Here, every exchange felt like a transaction. When Chrissy delivered a joke, Meghan's response came a beat too late, and more often than not, her reply didn't quite match the tone, leaving the moment hanging awkwardly in the air.
Copy of season 1, which critically was absolutely destroyed, JK. And we knew that this would likely be the case because they filmed this back to back with season 1.
When Meghan tried to share a personal anecdote, it landed with the stiffness of a rehearsed line, like she was reading from an invisible teleprompter. The energy in the room never built. It just hovered in a flat, uneasy space that made it obvious the audience was watching two separate performances in the same kitchen. Viewers flooded social media, calling the duo mismatched and oil and water, pointing out how Chrissy's quick, effortless spontaneity only amplified Meghan's rigid delivery. If the lack of chemistry was the first crack in the foundation, Meghan's visible discomfort with even basic kitchen tasks was the moment the structure began to collapse. For a segment built around hands-on cooking, her uncertainty was impossible to ignore, turning even simple steps, like dicing onions, into slow, awkward spectacles of hesitation.
Harry and Meghan, one of the last times we actually saw them together, they were in New York campaigning against cyberbullying online. They're campaigning for children and against bullies on the internet. Chrissy Teigen told a teenage girl on Twitter,
her grip on the knife was awkward, her cuts uneven and hesitant. At one point, she stopped entirely to glance off camera as if seeking silent instructions from a crew member before continuing. It wasn't the kind of endearing, relatable learning moment that might charm an audience. It was the kind of moment that made viewers wonder why she was chosen to lead the segment in the first place. The culinary fumbles kept adding up. Even basic cooking terms like sauté and blanch seemed to catch her off guard, prompting subtle but noticeable interventions from Chrissy to explain or redirect. Instead of coming across as a confident host, guiding the audience through a vibrant cultural culinary journey, Meghan looked like someone dropped into an exam she hadn't prepared for. Every awkward pause, every uncertain glance chipped away at the authority she was supposed to bring. And in a genre where authentic, hands-on skill is central to audience trust, her lack of capability didn't just weaken the episode, it unraveled the premise entirely. And then there was the cultural angle, the heavily marketed hook of the whole segment.
Did you see Jamie Kern Lima? Her podcasting friend is appearing in season 2. So we're going to get more of the moans and the yes.
I want to play it again, Ryan. I don't care. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Meghan's latest Netflix trailer.
Meghan introduced a Nigerian-inspired dish, presumably as a way to connect with viewers on a deeper level and infuse the segment with a sense of cross-cultural celebration. But instead of delivering genuine authenticity, the presentation felt surface-level and generic, built on broad, polished talking points that sounded like they'd been pulled from a quick internet search. She spoke in sweeping, feel-good phrases about flavors that bring people together and celebrating heritage through food, but offered no real insight into the dish's origins, regional variations, or traditional preparation techniques. Nigerian viewers were quick to call out glaring inaccuracies, substitutions that barely resembled authentic ingredients, preparation shortcuts that ignored key cultural steps, and an overall approach that looked more like a staged photo opportunity than a true culinary homage. What was meant to be a highlight of the segment instead became one of its most criticized moments.
See, when I hear season 2, season 1 was about fruit. This is even, have a look at it, have an eagle-eyed look for the phallic symbol on the pottery wheel. Everyone should just we've got past the phallic symbol of the penis with it. What was the thing that he said everybody should have one at home?
Social media backlash was immediate and unforgiving, with critics branding the segment as shallow cultural appropriation and accusing Meghan of using Nigerian cuisine as nothing more than a backdrop for personal branding. The disconnect was glaring. While she tried to frame herself as a bridge between cultures, she came across as detached from the very traditions she claimed to celebrate. If the performance itself wasn't damaging enough, Maureen Callahan's live TV takedown sealed the episode's fate. Known for her razor-sharp, fact-driven critiques, Callahan dissected the segment with surgical precision. She didn't just say it was bad, she broke down why it failed moment by moment. She flagged the lack of genuine rapport between Meghan and Chrissy, even citing time-stamped examples where Meghan avoided eye contact or failed to respond naturally to Teigen's conversational cues. She replayed clips of the awkward kitchen moments, Meghan fumbling with utensils, freezing mid-task, and looking visibly uneasy with even the most basic cooking steps, turning them into undeniable evidence of the episode's collapse.
Seemed like it was a meat display. Now that was Chef Jose Andres, who defended Meghan Markle after she was accused of being a disaster tourist when she was walking through the Palisades fire. He also does a lot of work with Martha Stewart and has had to sit there and bite his tongue when Martha's asked about Meghan Markle.
Callahan didn't hold back when she tackled the cultural presentation, calling it nothing less than a textbook example of how not to treat heritage cuisine. She pointed out Meghan's shallow explanations, the surface-level ingredient choices, and the glaring absence of any real historical or cultural story to tie the dish to its Nigerian roots. For those already uneasy about the episode, Callahan's sharp critique confirmed every doubt in crystal-clear detail. And for people who hadn't even watched the segment yet, her description painted the flaws so vividly that sitting through the actual footage felt pointless. They could already see just how badly it had missed the mark. By the time Callahan finished, the damage was done and the tone was set. What might have been brushed off as a simple off day for Meghan instead turned into a defining blow to her post-royal media image. The awkward on-screen tension, the lack of basic cooking skill, the hollow cultural tie-in, and the public dismantling all fused into one unforgettable headline that Meghan Markle, despite her resources, prep time, and access to experts, had still fallen flat.
But that seemed like such a insincere moment. Like that.
I think that's a really great word. I think that is the best word. It just, who was the woman with the wig? What was that all about? Did you see her?
I don't know who that was.
She needed a haircut, man. I wouldn't want her hair in the stuff that she was making. Dreadful.
She had failed to meet even the most basic expectations of a televised cooking segment, and for her critics, this wasn't just a misstep, it was proof that the gap between Meghan's polished public image and her ability to deliver under live pressure might be bigger than ever. If the live broadcast of Meghan Markle's With Love Part 2 was the spark, the hours that followed turned into a full-blown wildfire. Social media exploded almost instantly, not with praise or encouragement, but with a relentless wave of mockery and frustration. Clips from the episode, often paired with sarcastic captions or over-the-top edits, spread across platforms faster than Netflix could push out its official promo. Within minutes, the hashtags were trending. Variations like cooking catastrophe, with love without skill, and not my kitchen became rallying cries for both her most vocal critics and the casual viewers who had tuned in expecting something better.
I think that was her natural hair. But what I will say is that was one of the biggest complaints from season 1, that people were like, well, her hair's up, Meghan's hair's all over the place. Like if you're gonna be entertaining and doing this stuff, at least put your hair up, put your hair back. But again, she recorded these back to back, so she's not incorporating any of the feedback into season 2.
This wasn't harmless chatter. It was a backlash with the kind of volume and reach that showed the episode had struck a nerve, feeding into a deeper public doubt about Meghan's media projects. The most viral posts were quick, cutting clips that captured her most awkward moments, fumbling with utensils, mispronouncing common terms, or standing off to the side while Chrissy Teigen took over tasks she was supposed to handle. These short bursts of footage became the instant visual shorthand for the whole episode, shared by people who hadn't even seen the full thing, yet felt certain they'd seen enough to pile on with the criticism. The nonstop repetition of these moments across multiple platforms hammered home one damning idea that Meghan had no real place hosting a cooking series, and that the production couldn't hide it no matter how hard it tried. Within just hours, food bloggers and cultural commentators jumped in, adding sharp, informed critiques that Meghan's team couldn't dismiss as simple trolling. Nigerian chefs and culinary historians even posted detailed takedowns of her dish. They pointed out exactly where the ingredient swaps strayed from tradition and where the cooking techniques were either flat out wrong or left unfinished. This shifted the backlash from a casual pile-on to a well-documented case of cultural misrepresentation. It was no longer just about Meghan's shaky cooking skills, it was about the careless way cultural heritage had been served up to a global audience. While the internet laughed, industry insiders began tearing apart the business side of the disaster. Netflix, a platform known for guarding its reputation for quality, was suddenly in the awkward position of having to defend not just this episode, but the very decision-making that let it air at all. The perfect lighting, the picture-perfect set, the professional camera work, none of it could hide the cracks. In fact, that glossy presentation only made the weaknesses shine brighter. Viewers could clearly see this wasn't some scrappy, low-budget project gone wrong. It was a polished production with glaring flaws. It was a high-budget production, and yet it still failed to deliver. Industry whispers claim Netflix executives already knew the episode wasn't as strong as planned, but pushed it out anyway, betting that Meghan's star power would pull in viewers no matter the quality. In the short term, that gamble might have paid off. Reports suggested curiosity clicks surged in the first 48 hours, but at a steep cost to long-term credibility. Streaming analysts warned that these kinds of choices can chip away at audience trust, especially when big-name projects keep falling short. One analyst even said, "You can only sell the brand name for so long before the audience demands substance," and this episode, they stressed, had almost none.